317, no warning, no buildup. The radar screens didn't go black all at once. They flickered first, thin green lines stuttering, then collapsing into static. On the bridge of a tanker drifting just south of the Strait of Hormuz, a navigation officer tapped the glass twice. Like that would bring it back. It didn't. Outside, the sea looked the same. Flat, black, a faint diesel smell hung in the air. Engines idling. Nothing dramatic until the radios started overlapping. Lost GPS. Repeat, lost GPS. AIS down. Confirm? Silence, then more voices. Too many. 90 seconds earlier, 6 cruise missiles had skimmed low over the water, invisible to most of the ships below them. They weren't aimed at hulls or decks. They went for something quieter. The invisible spine, the system ships trust without thinking. Now that spine was gone. Within a 90 nautical mile radius, hundreds of vessels, tankers, container ships, LNG carriers, were suddenly navigating blind in the tightest maritime corridor on Earth. No shared positioning, no traffic picture, just steel hulls moving through darkness, guessing. Up north, along the cliffs of Keshem Island, launch smoke still clung to the rock face. You could smell it if you were close enough. Burnt propellant, sharp, metallic. This wasn't a mistake, it was timed, coordinated, practiced. And it changed the Strait of Hormuz in under 2 minutes. The Strait of Hormuz is only about 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. That's it. 2 shipping lanes, each just a couple of miles across, with a thin buffer zone between them. Every day, around 20 to 21 million barrels of oil move through that corridor, roughly a fifth of the world's supply. You don't reroute that. You can't. To the north sits Iran. To the south, Oman and the UAE. The geography isn't just tight, it's controlled. Cliffs, islands, shallow waters, choke points. It's the kind of place where a weaker military doesn't need to win outright. It just needs to disrupt. And Iran has spent decades preparing exactly for that. Not with aircraft carriers or large fleets, with asymmetry, fast attack boats, coastal missile batteries, mines, submarines that sit still and wait, and most importantly, layered denial. The idea isn't to sink everything. It's to make the area so dangerous, so unpredictable, that shipping slow, then stops.
Sector Gamma
that doctrine has a name
resistance.
in Western analysis.
Requesting immediate
a
air
2/AD anti-access/area denial. But for Iran, it's simpler. Close the door. The trigger in this case came 3 hours earlier. A joint U.S.-Israeli strike leveled a missile production facility deep inside Iran, Isfahan. Not symbolic, industrial, strategic, the kind of target that takes years to rebuild. Iran's response wasn't immediate retaliation against cities or bases. It went for leverage. Because hitting the global oil flow doesn't just hurt one country. It hits all of them. The U.S. included, Europe, China, India, everyone tied to energy markets. And markets react faster than militaries. Goldman Sachs projections had already started circulating. $200+ oil within 72 hours if Hormuz closed. Insurance rates spike, shipping halts, panic buying, governments scrambling. So when those 6 missiles launched at 317, they weren't trying to destroy ships. They were sending a message. You hit our infrastructure, we turn yours off. And just south of that message, a U.S. amphibious assault ship, USS Tripoli, was already inside the problem. At 3:40 inside the USS Tripoli, the air felt different. Not panic, not yet. But the bridge crew had stopped talking in full sentences. Short bursts now. Coordinates, bearings, confirmations. Someone wiped sweat off a console with the back of their sleeve and didn't notice they'd done it. Rear Admiral Hargrove leaned over the tactical display. The screen was crowded, too crowded, symbols stacking on top of each other. 12 fast attack craft, Iranian, moving in a loose arc across the northern passage. Not random, spacing was deliberate. Kill lanes. Behind them, nothing visible, which was worse. 3 Kilo-class submarines had already dropped below the thermocline. Once they go quiet down there, you don't track them. You guess, you wait, you listen for something that may never come. And then there was the island, Keshem. Satellite imagery had updated minutes earlier. 7 tunnel openings cut into the rock face. Not natural, clean edges, reinforced lips, big enough to roll launch systems in and out. Inside those tunnels, anti-ship missiles, rail-mounted, pre-aimed corridors covering the strait, layered defense. Surface, subsurface, sure. This wasn't harassment, it was architecture. 1. The A2/AD bubble snapped shut. Iran didn't try to overwhelm, it compressed. Fast boats at the choke point, submarines underneath, missile batteries above, and on top of that, electronic disruption. No single layer wins the fight. Together, they complicate every decision. Move forward, you expose to missiles. Hold position, you drift into submarine territory.
Yellow status
Engage
confirmed.
fast boats, you reveal your position.
Wait, we have a red
Everything
alert.
becomes a trade-off.
Impact detected,
That's the
I say
point
again,
of
impact detected.
A2/AD. Not to dominate, but to force hesitation. And hesitation in a place like Hormuz is lethal. 2. The U.S. constraint, win without breaking the system. The order that came down from Fifth Fleet wasn't aggressive. It was careful, almost restrained. Reopen the strait, minimum force, no large-scale strikes. That last part matters, because destroying those tunnel complexes outright, airstrikes, cruise missiles, sounds simple, until you consider what sits underneath. Fiber optic cables, financial data routes, Gulf state banking infrastructure running along the seabed nearby. Hit the wrong spot, collapse the wrong section of rock, and you're not just disabling missiles. You're taking down regional economies. So the objective shifted, not destruction. Disable the system quietly, precisely. That's not a job for carriers. That's a job for people. 3, deception, first, then entry. At 4:12, the sky above the strait lit up, but not the way it looked. 3, stealth, UAVs push forward, tight formation. They weren't armed, they didn't need to be. They turned on Lundberg lenses, simple devices, old physics. Suddenly, on Iranian radar, those drones didn't look small anymore. They bloomed into something larger, fighter-sized, maybe more. Radar operators reacted fast, too fast. Lock, track, launch. 8 surface-to-air missiles ripped upward from Iranian positions, chasing targets that weren't what they seemed. The sky filled with streaks of light, heat, noise, confusion. For a moment, Iran's attention tilted upward. That moment mattered. At the same time, a destroyer further south pulsed its radar at full power toward Keshem. Not to target, to overwhelm, to clutter. Inside the tunnel systems, older electronics struggled. Receivers flooded with noise. Guidance systems degraded. Not blind, but less certain. 40 seconds. That's all the window was. 4, insertion, low, fast, quiet. The helicopters didn't announce themselves. They came in low, 40 feet above the water, close enough that rotor wash kicked up spray. Salt mist hit the cockpit glass in streaks. No lights, no active radar, just terrain following and timing. They used the shadow of civilian vessels, cargo ships whose AIS signatures had been manipulated. From above, everything blended, clutter on clutter. 16 operators, gear tight, no wasted movement. The rope hit the roof first, then boots. 12 seconds. No shouting, just hand signals in motion. Then the breach. 5, inside the building. The charge blew inward. The door didn't swing. It folded. The first room cleared in seconds. Fast. Controlled. Muzzle flashes strobing the walls. The smell of burnt propellant filled the hallway immediately. But the intelligence had been wrong. There weren't 3 technicians inside. There were 19, and they were ready. The corridor choked fast. Tight angles, steel reinforcement. The defenders weren't using outdated rifles. They had compact, high-rate weapons suited for close quarters. Short bursts, loud, deafening in confined space. A SEAL pressed against the wall, slid forward, tapped twice on the shoulder ahead of him. Move. At the server room door, everything stopped. Reinforced, steel-plated, barricaded from the inside. No easy entry. The call went up the chain, quick, direct. Core room barricaded, request breach authority. Authority came back just as fast. Now the problem changed. Blow the door completely, you risk structural collapse. Damage the wrong conduit underneath, and you trigger something far bigger than this building. So they chose partial force. Controlled, surgical. The frame charge detonated. The door didn't vaporize, it buckled. Enough. They pushed through. 6. The server room decision. Inside, 3 defenders, backed against the hardware. They didn't run. 11 seconds, that's all it took. Then silence, except for the ringing. A specialist dropped to the console, pulled a hardened drive, plugged in, data wipe initiated, progress bar crawling, 4 minutes, 20 seconds. Too long. Outside, the situation shifted again. Fast attack boats, bog hammers were already moving. High speed,
Arming
cutting
sequence
across
initiated.
open water.
Detonation
Closing
in
distance
3,
fast.
2,
Inside the
1,
building, the hum
0.
of the system continued
Breach
until it
successful.
didn't.
An explosion, sharp, close. The floor vibrated under boots. Backup generator hit. Lights flickered once, then died. The screen froze at 88%. No progress, no time. The commander didn't hesitate. To pull it, the drive came out. Thermite charge went down, right onto the processor housing. There's a particular sound when thermite ignites. Not an explosion,
Warning.
a violent hiss,
System integrity
white
compromised.
hot. It eats through metal
Shutdown
like it's
complete.
soft. In seconds,
All
the
systems
system wasn't
offline.
recoverable. Not partially, not at all. Mission complete by destruction, not overwrite. 7. Extraction under pressure. Outside, the helicopters were already moving in. Low again, fast. The boats were close now. You could hear engines, high-pitched, aggressive, cutting across the water. Operators loaded in under half a minute. No one spoke. One of the helicopters banked hard left, skimming the surface. Spray hit the fuselage. From the shoreline, a shoulder-fired missile launched. Brief flare, then a thin smoke trail. It tracked, then lost lock. Hit the water short. The helicopters didn't slow. They were gone. 8. Immediate outcome. Minutes later, the effect rippled outward. Missile systems on Keshem went offline. Power cut. Guidance disabled. Fast boats lost coordination. The northern choke point loosened, just enough. Commercial vessels, which had been holding position, started moving again. Slowly at first, then with more confidence. The strait wasn't safe, but it wasn't closed anymore. 9. What was missed? On the surface, it looked like a contained success. Quick strike, limited force, objective achieved. But under the water, nothing had changed. 3 submarines were still there.
All missile sites
silent,
are showing red.
waiting. And unlike missiles or radar systems, you don't disable a submarine with a raid. You find it, or it finds you first. By 5:10, the first tanker crossed back into the traffic lane. Slow, deliberate, no sudden turns. From a distance, it looked routine. Just another ship moving through Hormuz. But nothing about that movement was normal anymore. Every captain in that corridor knew something had shifted, and not in a way that could be fixed overnight. Because what happened in those 90 minutes wasn't just a skirmish. It was a demonstration. 1. Control doesn't mean occupation anymore. For decades, naval dominance meant fleets, carriers, visible power. That model still exists, but it's no longer enough. Iran didn't need to control the strait physically. It didn't need to hold territory or deploy a large navy.
Warning.
It just
Critical
needed to
threat
create a
detected.
situation
Minefield
where
active.
movement
Threat
became
level
uncertain.
high.
That's the shift. Modern choke points aren't controlled by presence, they're controlled by risk density. Enough missiles, enough small boats, enough uncertainty under the water, and suddenly the strongest navy in the world is forced to slow down, calculate, hesitate. That hesitation is power, and smaller actors have learned how to manufacture it. 2. Precision is now a constraint, not just an advantage. The US operation worked, but look at how it worked. No large-scale strike, no overwhelming force, no destruction of the entire system, because it couldn't. Too many things were tied together. Military infrastructure sitting on top of civilian systems, economic networks woven into physical geography. Blow up the wrong target, and you don't just win a tactical fight. You trigger financial collapse, regional instability, political backlash. So instead of using full capability, the US had to narrow its options. Carefully, precisely, almost reluctantly. That's the paradox. The more advanced and interconnected the world becomes, the less freely military power can be used. Every strike carries second and third order consequences now, and adversaries know that. 3. The real weapon was timing. The missiles at 317 weren't about damage. They were about sequencing. Strike first, create confusion. Follow with layered defense, lock the space, force the opponent into a compressed decision window, then wait. Iran didn't rush escalation, it structured it. And that structure matters more than raw firepower. Because in modern conflict, whoever controls the tempo controls the narrative, the markets, and often the outcome. The US had to react quickly, under constraints. That's not where you want to be. 4. Undersea warfare is the unfinished problem. Everyone watched the skies, the drones, the missiles, the raid. But the most dangerous part of this scenario never surfaced. Submarines don't announce themselves. They don't need radar. They don't need line of sight. They don't care if GPS is working. They sit, they wait, and if they choose the moment correctly, a single torpedo or a line of mines can shut down a shipping lane far more effectively than a missile barrage. Clearing mines takes time, weeks, sometimes months. And during that time, insurance companies pull coverage. Shipping companies reroute. Prices spike anyway. That's the asymmetry. You don't need to win the fight. You just need to make the environment uninsurable. 5. Economic warfare is no longer secondary. Within hours of the incident, markets would react. Whether governments confirmed anything or not, oil futures spike, shipping rates surge, risk premiums explode. And none of that requires a prolonged conflict, just a credible threat. That's what this operation created. A moment where the global system realized how fragile its supply lines actually are. Not theoretically, practically, because everything still depends on a few narrow passages. And those passages are easier to disrupt than to defend. 6. This was a message, not an endpoint. Iran didn't close the strait permanently. It showed that it could. That distinction matters, because once a capability is demonstrated, even briefly, it changes calculations going forward. Every future movement through Hormuz now carries a shadow of that moment. Every military planner, every shipping company, every government has to factor in. What if it happens again, but longer? What if next time the submarines act? What if the window doesn't reopen in time? The raid succeeded, the corridor reopened, but nothing was reset. The system just proved how close it can come to breaking. At 6 o'clock, the sun came up over the strait. The water didn't look like a battlefield anymore. No smoke, no visible wreckage, just long shadows stretching off the hulls of tankers moving north in a straight line, one behind another, like nothing had happened. But on board, nothing felt routine. Navigation officers kept checking systems that were already back online. Radar screens were watched a little too closely. Radios stayed louder than usual. No one trusted the silence, because they had seen how fast it could disappear. 90 seconds. That's all it took to turn the most important shipping lane on Earth into something uncertain. Not destroyed, not blocked, just unreliable. And that was enough. The operation to reopen the strait worked, but it didn't solve the problem. It only pushed it back under the surface. Literally, somewhere below those ships, 3 submarines were still there. Still counting, still waiting for a different kind of opportunity. And that's the part most people will never see. No alerts, no headlines, no dramatic footage. Just a system that continues to function while sitting one decision away from failure. That's the reality now. Not constant war, not constant peace. Something in between. Fragile, calculated, quiet, and always closer to breaking than it looks.